I tracked my wife's lost phone to a house I purchased for us. It sounds like the punchline to a bad joke, doesn't it? Or maybe the start of a country song. Except it wasn't a joke, and there was no music. Just the suffocating silence of a mistake I'd made, echoing in my skull. Before we dive into the dumpster fire that my life became, if you're finding yourself drawn into this mess, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and honestly, it means the world to me that anyone's even listening. And while you're at it, toss a like on this. Share it if you know someone who's been through the ringer, and leave a comment. Tell me what you think, or tell me if I'm just losing my mind. Knowing I'm not talking to myself would be something. It started like most things do, with something small. Annoying, but small. Sarah, my Sarah, she's the kind of woman who makes sunlight look dull. Big, bright eyes that crinkle when she laughs, a laugh that could chase away the gloomiest day. We'd been together, God, how long now? 10 years, married for 7. 7 years of waking up next to her, of coffee on the porch, of arguing over which Netflix show to binge. 7 years of building a life that felt, to me at least, as solid and dependable as the mortgage on our little bungalow in Northwood. It was a good life, a quiet life. Mine, hers, ours. She'd misplaced her phone again. This was a regular occurrence. Sarah, bless her heart, was a whirlwind, organized chaos. Her purse was a black hole from which socks and receipts and random pieces of jewelry would occasionally emerge, but never the object she was actively looking for. Her phone was the ultimate prize. I'd found it in the freezer once, under the couch cushions, naturally, once, terrifyingly, in the dog's bed. So when she came to me, eyes wide with that familiar panic, I didn't think much of it. "Honey, have you seen my phone?" she'd asked, her voice already a little shaky. She was dressed for work, her sensible blazer on, her messenger bag slung over her shoulder, ready to tackle another day as a graphic designer. "Check the kitchen counter, honey," I'd said, stirring my coffee, the morning sun slanting through the blinds, highlighting the dust motes dancing in the air. It was a Tuesday, a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. Not there, and not on my nightstand. She was pacing, a nervous energy starting to radiate from her. "Did you take it to the gym yesterday?" I asked, remembering she'd gone for a run. "No, I left it charging. I swear I did." She was rifling through the junk drawer, the one that held old batteries, dried-up pens, and countless instruction manuals for appliances we no longer owned. Okay, deep breaths, I said, trying to be the calm one. That was always my role, the steady anchor. I took a sip of my coffee. "Let's retrace your steps. You were here last night, right?" "Yes, we watched that documentary, remember?" Her brow was furrowed, her focus entirely on the lost device. It was more than just a phone to her. It was her calendar, her lifeline, her connection to the world. "Right, and then you went to bed?" "Yeah, I think I put it on my nightstand, or maybe the dresser." She was already halfway up the stairs. I could hear her rummaging in the bedroom. I finished my coffee, the familiar taste suddenly a little flat. This was her thing, the lost phone. It wasn't a big deal. Until it was. She came back down looking defeated. "It's not anywhere. I've looked everywhere." "Did you check your car?" "I haven't driven it since yesterday morning." "Well, it has to be somewhere." I sighed, a little more exasperated than I intended. I was already thinking about my own day. I managed a small software development firm. Deadlines, client calls, the usual grind. All right, let me see if I can find it using the Find My iPhone app. You know, the one you always forget to enable. I pulled out my own phone, a genuine sigh of relief escaping me when I saw the familiar silhouette of her phone icon appear on the map. It was a few blocks away. That was odd. "Where is it?" Sarah asked, leaning over my shoulder, her breath warm on my neck. I zoomed in. The pin was hovering over a residential street. "It's a few blocks over, in that neighborhood off Elm Street." Her eyes widened. "That's weird. I didn't go over there. I was home all evening." "Maybe you left it at work?" I suggested. "No, I would have gone back for it. And it's not at the office. I checked." She was starting to look genuinely worried now. "It has to be somewhere close." "Well, the map doesn't lie," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Maybe you dropped it when you were out yesterday and someone picked it up and brought it this way?" "But why would they bring it here? This is miles from where I was." She wrung her hands. "I don't know, honey. Let's just go get it." I grabbed my keys. "Come on, it's probably just a misunderstanding." The drive there was tense. Sarah was quiet, her gaze fixed on the passing houses,
a strange mixture of confusion and apprehension on her face. The neighborhood was familiar. Too familiar. It was a quiet, tree-lined street, a mix of older homes and a few newer builds. We pulled up to the address the app indicated. It was a modest 2-story house with a manicured lawn and a slightly overgrown rose bush by the porch. Nice, but not remarkable. The kind of house you see 1,000 times in any suburban sprawl. "This is it?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. "Looks like it," I said, my own unease starting to bubble. There was something about this street. I couldn't quite place it, but it tugged at a memory. We got out of the car. The phone signal was strong, leading us right to the front door. "Should I knock?" Sarah asked, her hand hovering near my arm. "Yeah, I guess. Someone's home." I walked up the path, the gravel crunching under my feet. Sarah followed, a hesitant step behind me. I raised my hand to knock, and then I froze. The mailbox. It had a name on it. A name that sent a jolt of ice through my veins. D. Miller. I knew that name. Of course I knew that name. How could I not know that name? D. Miller. David Miller. He was a contractor. A general contractor I'd worked with a few years back on a remodel project for my parents. A good guy. Solid. Reliable. I hadn't seen him in ages, but he'd been a pleasant acquaintance. But that wasn't what stopped me. It was the house itself. The color of the siding. The style of the windows. The slightly angled roofline. I knew this house. Not because I'd seen it before, but because I'd chosen it. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots, and failing miserably. Why would Sarah's phone be at David Miller's house? And why did this house feel so familiar? I knocked. The sound was loud in the sudden silence. A moment passed, then another. The door opened, revealing a woman I didn't recognize. She had tired eyes and a harried expression, a smudge of paint on her cheek. "Yes?" she asked, her voice wary. I managed, my voice sounding strangely distant. "We think my wife might have lost her phone. Our tracker led us here." I gestured vaguely towards Sarah. The woman looked at Sarah, then back at me. "Her phone. I haven't seen anyone's phone." "Are you sure?" Sarah asked, her voice small. "It was a black iPhone. It should be right here." She pointed to the porch. The woman sighed, running a hand through her messy bun.
Look, I'm sorry. Nothing here. Maybe the tracker is wrong. It's never been wrong before, I said, my gaze sweeping over her, then the interior of the house visible through the open door. A living room, sparsely furnished. A child's drawing taped to the wall. A faint smell of something. Cleaner? "Well, maybe it's broken today," she said, her tone polite but firm, a clear invitation for us to leave. "Could I just step inside for a second?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. Just to be absolutely sure. Sometimes things get misplaced. She hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly. I don't think so. I'm a little busy. It'll be quick, I insisted, my gaze fixed on a small side table near the door. On it, I saw it, a set of keys. And next to the keys, nestled amongst some mail, was Sarah's phone. Identical to mine, down to the cracked screen protector I'd meant to fix for weeks. A cold dread washed over me. It wasn't just the phone. It was the impossible familiarity of the scene. The woman at the door, the living room, the keys on the table. "Is that—" Sarah started, her voice trailing off as she saw it too. The woman followed our gaze. Her face paled slightly. "Oh, that. Yes. My husband found it this morning on his way to work. He was going to take it to Lost and Found. Husband. David Miller. I knew that name. But this woman, she wasn't Sarah, and she certainly wasn't me. Your husband found it," I asked, my voice dangerously low. "And you didn't think to call Sarah, or at least check if it was hers?" I knew Sarah's ringtone. It was a pop song she loved. If that phone had rung, this woman would have heard it. I just got up," the woman stammered, her eyes darting between us. "He just got home a little while ago." "Just got home," I repeated, a dark suspicion beginning to bloom in my gut. David Miller, the contractor, this house, the feeling of familiarity. It was all starting to click in the worst possible way. I looked at Sarah, her face a mask of confusion and dawning horror. She was staring at the phone, then at me, then back at the woman. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The woman looked down, her shoulders slumping. I'm Emily, David's wife. Emily, David's wife. The pieces were fitting together, sharp and jagged. I'd worked with David. He was a good contractor. He was married. He had kids. I remembered seeing a picture on his desk once, a smiling woman and 2 young children. I'd never paid much attention. But the house, why did this house feel so deeply familiar? I'd never been here before. I was certain of it. I'd never met Emily before. But the layout, the color of the walls, the way the light hit the floorboards, it was like a dream I'd had, or a memory I'd forgotten. Then it hit me, a thunderclap of realization that stole my breath. This house, this specific house, the one with the rosebush and the slightly crooked mailbox, the one I'd been looking at online for months, the one I'd been saving for, the one I'd put an offer on, the offer that had been accepted last week, the one I was going to surprise Sarah with, the future house, the one we'd talked about, the one we were going to renovate and make our own. I'd even driven by it a few times, picturing us there. That's why it felt familiar. I had the address, I had the pictures, I'd fallen in love with it from afar. And now, Sarah's phone was here, at my house, a house I hadn't told her about yet, a house that was supposed to be a surprise. And this woman, Emily, David's wife, was she living here? In my house? The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I looked at Sarah, her eyes wide and accusing, mirroring my own confusion and fear. Her phone was on that table, and a woman I didn't know was standing between us and it, claiming to be the wife of the contractor I once knew, the contractor whose name was on my new mailbox. My mind was a storm of fractured thoughts. Cheating? But how? Sarah? With David Miller? And why my house? Why this house? It didn't make any sense. And the feeling of familiarity, it was like a phantom limb, an ache for something I thought was mine. My house, I blurted out, the words tasting like ash. Emily flinched. Your house? What are you talking about? This is my house, I said, my voice shaking. I just bought it. The closing is next week. Her eyes widened in genuine shock. You bought it? But David said. She trailed off, looking utterly bewildered. David said what? I pressed, stepping closer, my fists clenching at my sides. The warmth of the morning sun felt like a cruel mockery. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. She just stared at me, her face a picture of dawning horror. And then, from somewhere deep inside the house, I heard a child's voice, a little girl's voice. Mommy! Who is it? The sound pierced the tension, a tiny, innocent sound that somehow amplified the dread. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes darting from Emily to me, her face pale. The phone on the table, the keys, the child's voice. It was all too much, too real, too broken. I stared at Emily, at the house that was supposed to be our sanctuary, at the phone that had led me to this impossible, gut-wrenching scene. The quiet life I thought we had was crumbling around me, and I didn't know which part was real and which was a lie. The hook had been set, and now I was caught, drowning. The child's voice. Little girl. Mommy? It echoed in the sudden, cavernous silence that fell after Emily's stunned gasp. Emily, David's wife. My house. Sarah's phone. It was a tangled knot of impossible realities, and I felt like I was being strangled by it. My vision narrowed, focusing on the smudge of paint on Emily's cheek, the way her hand was still hovering near her mouth. Her eyes, those tired eyes, were now wide with a dawning, horrified understanding. It wasn't just my shock she was reflecting. It was something far deeper, far more complex. David said. He said he was finalizing things. Emily finally managed, her voice thin, reedy. He said it was sorted. She looked past me, towards the door, as if expecting David to materialize, to explain this grotesque tableau. But there was only the quiet street, the rustling leaves of the oak tree in the yard, the suffocating heat of the morning air. Sorted, I repeated, the word catching in my throat. What the hell do you mean, sorted? This is my house. I signed the papers. I'm closing next week. You and your husband you're trespassing. The anger, a raw, guttural thing, finally began to claw its way up my chest. It was a welcome relief from the paralyzing confusion. Sarah let out a small, choked sob. She hadn't moved, hadn't said a word since seeing her phone. Her gaze was fixed on the keys on the table, then flickered to me, then back to Emily. Her face was a canvas of bewilderment, her usual bright spark extinguished, replaced by a raw, vulnerable fear. It was the look of someone seeing their entire world warp and twist into something unrecognizable. David, he didn't say he was selling it, Emily whispered, her voice cracking. He said he was
getting it ready. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. He said he had a deal for a buyer, but he never said it was finalized. He said he needed to make arrangements. Arrangements. I took a step forward, my boots crunching on the gravel path.
The sound seemed deafeningly loud. What kind of arrangements? Like moving out? I could feel Sarah's eyes on me, her silent question hanging in the air. What is going on? Emily shook her head, tears now welling in her eyes, blurring the paint smudge. No. He said he found a buyer who was very understanding, who would let them stay for a little while. Her voice broke. He said it was a way out. For us. A way out. My house? My future home? A place for them to stay? The implications crashed over me like a tidal wave. David Miller, the contractor I'd known, the one with the wife and kids, he was in some kind of trouble, financial trouble maybe, and he'd sold this house, my house, without telling his wife or the actual buyer, me. And he'd somehow convinced me that it was available, even as he was living in it with his family. How is that even possible? Had he forged documents? Ripped me off? And Sarah's phone. How did it get here? Was she involved? Was this some elaborate setup? The thought sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. Sarah, my Sarah, the woman who still left me little notes on the bathroom mirror, who always remembered my favorite takeout order, who kissed me goodbye every morning with genuine affection. Could she be part of this? Could she have known about David and Emily? Could she have been meeting David here? The phone tracker leading me to this house, the house I was supposed to surprise her with, the house he was living in. This is insane, I muttered, running a hand through my hair, feeling the sweat prickling on my forehead. This is some kind of scam. David Miller is trying to defraud me. I looked at Sarah, her face pale and drawn. Sarah, you've been here before, haven't you? The question was sharper than I intended, accusatory. She flinched. No, what are you talking about? I told you, I didn't know where my phone was. Her voice was trembling, a fragile thread of denial. But the phone, I insisted, my gaze locking onto hers, it led us here, to this house, the house I bought, the house you've never seen before, but that feels familiar to me because I've been obsessed with it online for months. The familiarity, the layout, the street. It wasn't just a contractor's house, it was my house. I'd fallen in love with it through pictures, driven by it a couple of times, already imagining where the sofa would go, where we'd put the Christmas tree. I don't understand, Sarah whispered, her eyes darting between me and Emily. Why would David Miller have my phone, and why is he living in your new house? That's what I'm trying to figure out, Sarah. My voice was louder now, the anger and confusion a toxic cocktail churning inside me. Maybe you can shed some light on it. Did you know David Miller? Did you know he was in trouble? Did you know he was selling this house? No, of course not. She stepped back, her hands going up defensively. Why would I know any of that? I've never met him. I've never even heard his name before today. Emily, who had been silently weeping, suddenly looked up, her eyes wide. David, he has been stressed, very stressed. He's been spending a lot of time out. He said he was meeting with people, investors, to get a new project off the ground. She hesitated, then added, almost inaudibly, he was very secretive about it. Secretive. That was putting it mildly. This wasn't just about a shady contractor selling a house out from under me. This was about Sarah and her phone and the fact that it ended up here, in my house, a house I hadn't told her about yet, a surprise I was supposed to spring on her, a surprise that had just imploded in the most spectacular, gut-wrenching fashion. I looked at the house again, the slightly crooked mailbox with the name D. Miller, the rosebush, the windows. It was all so real, so tangible, and yet it felt like a hallucination, a cruel, elaborate prank. I imagined David Miller, the contractor, with his easy smile and firm handshake, telling me all about the renovation potential of this place, all while planning to sell it behind my back. And then, Sarah's phone, her digital life, her connection to everything, found in the home of the man who was screwing me over. When did he say he was going to sort things out? I asked Emily, my voice dangerously calm. The rage was still there, but it was a cold, simmering rage now, one that was beginning to focus. Emily wrung her hands. He said he was moving out by the end of the month. He said he had another place lined up, a rental, I think. He wanted to surprise me. She choked back a sob. He kept saying it was all going to be okay, that he was taking care of everything. A rental. He was moving out, so he was planning to leave. But how did he have Sarah's phone, and why here? This was the question that gnawed at me, the piece that didn't fit. Unless
at Sarah, her eyes brimming with unshed tears, her lower lip trembling. "Sarah," I said, my voice softer, but laced with a new, sharp edge. Did you know David Miller? Did you meet him before?" Her breath hitched. "No, I swear, Michael, I don't know him. I don't know this woman. I don't know why my phone is in this house." She looked at me, her eyes pleading, desperate. "You have to believe me." The plea was genuine, her fear was palpable, but the evidence, the phone, leading me here, to the house I'd bought, to the house where this woman's husband was apparently living, it was too much to dismiss. "The app," I said, my mind racing. "It showed the phone was stationary here for a while, then it moved, then it stopped moving again. When did you last have your phone, Sarah?" She bit her lip, her gaze dropping to the ground. "And then," I pressed, "and then, I don't know. I must have put it down somewhere. I was rushing. You know how I get when I'm rushing." Her voice was barely a whisper. She looked utterly miserable. "Did you go anywhere yesterday evening?" I asked. "No, I was home all night. We watched that documentary, remember?" She looked up at me, her eyes wide and pleading. "You were there. We were together. We were together." "Yes, we were." But her phone, where was it? And why did it end up here? This David Miller, he was a contractor. He'd worked for my parents years ago. I remembered him as a decent guy. What had happened to him to drive him to this, to steal from me, to bring my wife's phone into his illicit hideout? Emily was watching us, her own tears falling silently. "My husband, he's not a thief," she said, her voice thick with emotion. He's made mistakes, big ones. He lost a lot of money on a bad investment. He was trying to fix it. He said he'd found a way to secure our future. He was so proud." She looked at me, her expression one of pure devastation. "He told me he'd found a buyer for this house, a very generous buyer. He said they were letting us stay until we found somewhere new. He never mentioned any of this. A generous buyer, my generous buyer, who was letting them live in my house, and somehow Sarah's phone was in the middle of it all. It felt like a bizarre, twisted soap opera, except it was my life, my marriage, my house."
"So," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "David Miller sold me this house, accepted my money, and is living here with his family, right? And then he somehow gets my wife's phone, and it ends up here, on a table next to his keys, in his house, which is now my house." I looked at Sarah, my heart a lead weight in my chest. "Is there something you're not telling me, Sarah?" Her eyes widened, a flicker of hurt crossing her face. "Michael, no! How could you even think that?" "Because the evidence points to it, Sarah," I snapped. "Your phone is here, in the house that a man I thought I knew has defrauded me out of. How else am I supposed to interpret this?" "I don't know," she cried, her voice breaking. "I don't know how my phone got here, but I didn't know David Miller. I didn't know he was selling this house. I swear on everything." Emily, meanwhile, had sunk onto the porch steps, burying her face in her hands. Her sobs were quiet but racking. The child's voice called out again, closer this time, muffled by a door somewhere within the house. "Mommy, are you okay?" The innocent sound was like a physical blow. This wasn't just about money or betrayal of trust with me. This was a family being torn apart, and somehow Sarah and I were right in the middle of it. My perfect surprise, my dream house, had become a crime scene. A crime scene where the victim was me, the perpetrator was a contractor I'd trusted, and the evidence was my wife's lost phone, sitting innocently on a table that was now impossibly mine. I looked at the phone. Black iPhone, cracked screen protector. It was Sarah's. It was evidence. Evidence of what, though? Of her infidelity? Of David Miller's scam? Or both? The sheer, unadulterated confusion was almost unbearable. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice with no idea which way to jump. "I need to see that phone," I said, my voice low and firm. I walked towards the open door, towards the table. Emily flinched as I approached, but she didn't move. Sarah stood frozen, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and pleading. As I reached for the phone, my hand trembling slightly, I noticed something else on the table. Tucked beneath a scattering of junk mail and a set of car keys that I recognized as belonging to David Miller was a small folded piece of paper. It looked like a receipt. I picked it up. It was from a local florist, dated yesterday. And it was for a single red rose. A single red rose. Why would David Miller buy a single red rose? And why would it be here on this table with Sarah's phone? My gaze flickered from the receipt to Sarah, then to Emily. Sarah's face was unreadable, a mask of shock and confusion.
Emily's tears had stopped, replaced by a look of stunned realization, as if the receipt was also a piece of a puzzle she hadn't seen before. A single red rose. A peace offering? A token of affection? A confirmation of something? But what? And for whom? My mind reeled. Was it for Emily? A desperate attempt to smooth things over? Or was it for Sarah, a clandestine gift delivered yesterday when she was supposedly home all night? I picked up the phone. It was locked. Of course. I knew Sarah's passcode. I'd set it up for her countless times. My fingers, numb with shock and adrenaline, fumbled with the numbers. The screen lit up. Her home screen. A picture of us, smiling, on a beach, taken on our anniversary last year. The sight of it was like a punch to the gut. I opened the Messages app. Her recent conversations. And there it was. A thread, labeled simply with a contact name I didn't recognize, and the last message, sent yesterday afternoon, read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. My place. Be careful." My place. This place. The place I had just bought. And Sarah's reply, sent minutes later. "Me too. See you soon. Love you. Love you." The words seared themselves into my brain. Love you. My wife. Her phone. In this house. With a message to a man I didn't know, arranging to meet him here, yesterday, when she claimed she was home with me, and the single red rose receipt. Everything clicked into place, forming a horrifying, undeniable picture. I looked up from the phone, my eyes meeting Sarah's. Her face had gone ashen. The shock was still there, but now it was mixed with a dawning, terrible understanding. The confusion was gone, replaced by the cold, hard realization of betrayal. My betrayal. Her betrayal. The world tilted. The quiet, dependable life I thought I had was shattered. This wasn't just about a fraudulent contractor and a lost phone. This was about everything. About Sarah. About us. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that nothing would ever be the same. The hook was in, deep, and the line was taut. The silence that followed was absolute, a physical presence in the humid air. Emily's quiet sobs were the only sound for a long moment, a mournful counterpoint to the roaring in my ears. I looked at Sarah, really looked at her, and saw not my wife, not the woman I loved, but a stranger. Her eyes, those eyes that usually held such warmth and genuine affection, were wide and vacant, fixed on some point beyond me. The color had drained from her face, leaving it pale and drawn, her lips parted as if she were about to speak, but no sound came out. The love you sent to him. My voice, when it finally emerged, was a rasp, rough and unfamiliar. Who is him, Sarah? It wasn't a question, it was a demand, delivered with the chilling calm of someone who already knew the answer and was simply waiting for the confirmation that would break them. She flinched as if I had struck her. Her gaze finally met mine, and in that instant I saw it. The guilt, the shame, the sheer, unadulterated terror of being caught. It was all there, laid bare for me to see. The mask had fallen, and the truth, ugly and raw, was exposed. "Michael," she whispered, her voice choked with tears. "Please." "Please what, Sarah?" My voice was still dangerously low, laced with a venom I hadn't known how to zest. "Please pretend I didn't just see this? Please pretend the phone in my hand, with your message, in this house, with his wife and child standing right there, doesn't mean anything?" I held up the phone, the screen still glowing with those damning words. "Because that's what you were asking me to do. You were asking me to believe you, and I did. I believed you when you said you were home. I believed you when you said you didn't know David Miller. I believed you when you said you didn't know why your phone was here." Emily, who had been watching us with a growing unease, now looked directly at me, her confusion slowly giving way to a dawning comprehension. Her eyes, previously filled with the pain of her own husband's deceit, now reflected a dawning awareness of a similar, or perhaps even greater, betrayal. She looked from Sarah to me, and back again, a silent witness to the unraveling of my marriage. Sarah started, but her voice failed her. She swallowed hard, her Adam's apple bobbing convulsively. It's not what you think." "Oh, really?" I let out a harsh, humorless laugh. "Then enlighten me, Sarah. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been leading a double life. It looks like you've been lying to me. It looks like you've been sneaking around behind my back."
And it looks like you've been doing it in the house that I just bought. The house that I was planning to surprise you with. The house that I thought was our future." The words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. I watched her closely, searching for any flicker of denial, any hint of innocence. But there was none, only the crumbling edifice of her carefully constructed deception collapsing around her. "It started a few weeks ago," she finally managed, her voice barely audible. He contacted me about work, a project he was consulting on." "Consulting on," I repeated, incredulity lacing my tone. "David Miller, the contractor who's apparently a con artist? Who is he consulting for, Sarah? Because it certainly wasn't for me. It was a different company," she stammered, her eyes darting around anywhere but at me. "A startup. They needed some advice on logistics. He seemed very knowledgeable, and he was very charming." Charming, of course he was charming. Charming enough to convince me he was a reputable contractor, charming enough to sell my house out from under me, and charming enough to seduce my wife. The trifecta of deception. "So you started meeting him?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "For work?" She nodded, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement of her head. "Just a few times, to discuss things. He said he was having problems at home with his wife, that they were drifting apart." The irony of it all was almost too much to bear. David Miller, the man who was supposedly having marital problems, was living in my house with his wife and child. And Sarah, my wife, was falling for his story, falling for him, while I was blissfully unaware, planning our future in the very house he had stolen from us. "And the messages?" I pressed, my gaze unwavering. "The love you? The meeting at his place last night? Was that part of the consulting too?" Her breath hitched, the color drained from her face, leaving her looking spectral. "Michael, I messed up. I made a terrible mistake." "A mistake?" The word felt inadequate, a flimsy cover for the seismic betrayal she had inflicted. "This isn't a spilled coffee, Sarah. This is everything. This is our marriage. This is my trust. This is my life." Emily, who had been listening with a growing horror, now looked at Sarah with a mixture of pity and disgust. She stood up slowly, her movements stiff. "He never said anything," she murmured, her voice hollow. "He never said he was seeing anyone else. He just said he was stressed, that he needed space." She looked at me, her eyes filled with a profound sadness. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." I didn't acknowledge her. My focus was entirely on Sarah, on the woman who had shattered my world into a million irreparable pieces. "When were you going to tell me, Sarah?" I asked, my voice laced with a bitterness that tasted like ash. "Or were you just going to keep living this lie? Were you going to let me move into this house, knowing you'd been here with him?" Tears streamed down her face now, unchecked. "I don't know," she sobbed. "I was going to tell you. I didn't know how. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you." "Lose me?" I scoffed. "You already have, Sarah. You lost me the moment you decided to lie to me, the moment you decided to meet another man, the moment you decided to betray everything we had." The child's voice, a small, insistent sound from within the house, cut through the heavy atmosphere. "Mommy, are you coming in?" Emily flinched. She looked back at the house, then at me, then at Sarah. The weight of the situation, the raw, exposed pain of all three of us, seemed to crush her. I should go," she said, her voice trembling. "My daughter, she needs me." She looked at Sarah, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes, then at me. "I truly am sorry for all of this." She turned and walked towards the house, disappearing inside without another word. The door closed softly behind her, leaving us in the stunned, suffocating aftermath. I looked at Sarah again. The tears were still falling, but the shock was starting to recede, replaced by a profound despair. She looked utterly broken, and in that moment, a sliver of my anger softened, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. This was not how I had envisioned our life together. This was not the future I had dreamed of. "So," I said, my voice rough with emotion, "what happens now, Sarah?" She finally met my gaze, her eyes red-rimmed and pleading. I don't know, Michael," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I don't know if we can fix this. I've
I've ruined everything. I looked at the house, my house, the house that had become a symbol of everything I had lost, the house that held the ghosts of David Miller's deceit and Sarah's betrayal. I thought about the emails I'd exchanged with David, the cheerful reassurances, the promise of a beautiful, solid home. I thought about Sarah, the woman I had loved more than anything, the woman who had promised me a lifetime of happiness. And I thought about the single red rose receipt, the message on her phone, the undeniable proof of her infidelity. "There's no fixing this, Sarah," I said, the words heavy with finality. "Not this, not now. I can't unsee what I've seen. I can't unhear what I've heard." I took a deep breath, the humid air doing little to cool the burning in my chest. I need to go. I need some space. I turned away from her, from the house, from the wreckage of my life. I didn't look back. I walked towards my car, parked on the street, each step a conscious effort. The gravel crunched under my feet, a sharp, jarring sound in the otherwise still afternoon. Getting into the car felt like stepping into another dimension. The familiar interior, the scent of old leather and air freshener, was alien. It was a life I had lived, a life that now felt impossibly distant. I started the engine, the rumble a low thrum of an engine that had always felt like ours, a life we shared. But it wasn't ours anymore. It was just mine. As I pulled away from the curb, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Sarah was standing on the porch, a solitary figure against the backdrop of the house. She was crying, her shoulders shaking. I felt a pang, a sharp, painful jab of what had once been love, but it was quickly swallowed by the overwhelming tide of hurt and anger. I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. The suburbs blurred past, the familiar landscape now tinged with a profound sense of loss. The houses, the manicured lawns, the children playing in their yards, it all seemed so idyllic, so perfect. A stark contrast to the chaos raging inside me. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the road, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. It was a beautiful sunset, a cool, mocking beauty that mirrored the shattered remnants of my own life. I thought about the phone, about the messages, about the receipt, the physical evidence of betrayal. It was undeniable, and the knowledge of it was a cold, hard weight in my gut. The house, my house, it sat down, a monument to broken promises and stolen dreams. I knew I would never be able to live there. Not now, not ever. The memories of David Miller, his lies, and Sarah's betrayal would forever be etched into its walls. I stopped the car on the side of a deserted road, surrounded by fields of tall grass.
I turned off the engine, plunging myself into a sudden, unnerving silence. The only sound was the chirping of crickets and the distant hum of traffic. I leaned my head back against the headrest, closing my eyes. The images replayed in my mind. Sarah's ashen face, Emily's quiet sorrow, the damning words on the phone. It was a nightmare, a waking nightmare from which I couldn't escape. There were no grand pronouncements to be made, no moral lessons to be learned, just the raw, brutal truth. My wife had cheated on me, the man I trusted had defrauded me, and my dream house had become a symbol of their shared deceit. I opened my eyes and looked out at the darkening landscape. The stars were beginning to appear, scattered across the vast, indifferent sky. They offered no comfort, no answers, just a cold, distant light. This was it, the end of something, the end of us, the end of the life I thought I had. I started the car again, the engine's roar a desperate, defiant sound against the encroaching darkness. I had to keep moving. I had to find a way to put one foot in front of the other, even when the ground beneath me had disappeared. I had to survive this. I didn't know how, but I had to. As I drove on, the road ahead stretching out into the unknown, a single thought echoed in the emptiness of my mind. This is just the beginning.